Welcome to another progress video on my 7¼ inch gauge locomotive project. And I wanted to do something really structured, like I'm going to tackle the various topics in separate videos, like more of the bodywork and then the pantograph design and painting, which is happening over here. And I just realized that everything is happening so slowly, and I'm doing all these works really fragmented. Sometimes I just come here for half an hour and do a little bit of sanding here. And whenever I do that, I don't start the camera because in most cases I just forget. So I don't have a real footage, and all the footage that I have is just in various pieces, and none of them is enough for a single video. So I'm just going to give you this update, like what I've been doing in the past couple of weeks, what will be the next. So first thing is, well, there's going to be three things, is finishing the body, working on some pantograph design, and finally getting some bits painted, the ones that I'm no longer planning to work on. So maybe I'm going to tackle this body first. So I think pretty much the only metalworking part that I wanted to do is these bands. I don't know how they are actually called in English, what's the proper word for them in English, but most of the older locomotives seem to have that. I don't really know what's the real purpose of them. I don't think that they are, structural. I think they are mostly cosmetic, just to break up this whole, side, big, huge panel, which is definitely was an aim in my case. Otherwise, it will be just one big panel, apart from the grills. So at least it creates a nice dividing line. And I was thinking that I'm just going to use the German Rheingold cream and blue color scheme. So I think the logo is going to be cream all the way to the bottom of the strip or the band, and it's going to be blue. I think it's navy blue down here. At least that's the plan at the moment. So I got all these bits and pieces, and this was a huge struggle because I thought I can go to my local yard and they would be able to create me this strip. Obviously this is not something that I can buy. I thought these strips are also manufactured, but apparently they don't. So you just have to get a big piece of sheet metal and then just use the angle grinder. And I realized that I'm not be able to do that. I'm going to make a terrible job. So I thought maybe the guys at the steel yard is going to do it. And they said, no, we are not going to, just cut you strips. You have to do it your own. And I was, and anyway, I didn't want to do that. And I also have a nibbler, so I thought maybe I can do something with a nibbler, but that turned out to be terrible. So, and when I had to design the pantograph, I knew that I have to do some laser cutting part. So actually I designed a strip of 1 mil aluminum strip. So this is 1 mil steel, 1 centimeter wide, and it was cut on the laser cutter. So yeah, I'm not really proud of that, but sorry, that was the easiest way for me to do. And actually I created these strips, so this is just a cutoff. So it's 6 mil holes every 5 centimeters, and I just basically put it here, and I use the welder. I think I turned it down to like 50 amps, and I just created these small spot welds, and it was really easy. It's like I've never really felt how malleable the steel gets when it melts. But literally I would use a clamp to hold this band here, and I would start welding here, and once I sort of soften this section, just by the sheer weight of this stuff, it starts to sag. So I have to keep it, and of course because of the heat it expands this way, so you can't clamp it in multiple places because then it would just start bowing out. So I think I made a little bit of mess here. I don't think that you can see it. Maybe if you see it from this angle you can, but I was definitely a little bit of struggle. And so at the end I just had to hold it like this, and I have to go in a certain way because I can only weld with my right hand. So I have to always go from right to left, so I can use my left hand to hold the strip and use my right hand to weld the holes, but actually it worked out, so I'm pretty happy with that, how the whole thing turned out. It waves a little bit, and sometimes it's not flush with the body, but I think from a distance you can't really tell, but definitely not from this camera distance. If I bring you closer, maybe you can. And for me, that was the last thing that I wanted to weld on the body. And once that is done, oh, by the way, did I show you that I have some doors? I think I didn't. So I have some doors as well. So once I had these parts done, actually let me move the light, then I can, start the bodywork, as in filling the welding gaps, especially filling all these edges so they are not sharp edges. And also I started filling in these edges on the windows, on the front, and at the doors as well. And I've done the first coat. I started sanding it down. I'm still not done with sanding. It's quite a big work, I have to say, especially sanding these edges down with a small file. And I was trying to use all sorts of hand tools. So I have an orbital sander, I have this guy as well. So this helped me to do the bulk of the work, but then the end, it has to be done manually anyway. So it still needs, I think it probably needs a few coats of these things to go on, and then a lot more sanding, and then maybe at some point it's going to be completed. But that's it. And maybe I can bring you a little bit closer so that you can see how it all looks at the moment. I think that probably needs another coat here just to cover up the gap. And of course, this is not smooth at all. So I think I need more material here, and then I need to sand it down furthermore. But I think if this, this looks fairly decent already. And this window frame looks fairly decent as well. I just have to make sure that pretty much all of this is sort of in that same standard. But you can see how it looks. Maybe I can have a couple of words about the Pantograph as well. It's in a piece of board, so I can test it separately. But I have received a plan, and I'm not sure, I don't think the plan is public, so I'm just going to talk about it. But I use that plan to basically redesign mine, which is on the same concept, but I have pretty much redrawn the whole thing from the ground up. So I have these lower arms that are laser cut, so this is 2 mil steel, and sort of this like one piece bent angle iron, sorry, not angle iron, sheet. And you can see the holes here for the springs, so I have to get some springs here. And of course the upper arms are going to be just rods, which I haven't fabricated yet. So this is how it's going to be, sort of in the up position, and that's the down position. And maybe you can make out that there is a piece of plate here. And that plate is like this. And that's going to catch on the various surfaces, so that's going to stop the lower arm in the lower position and also in the upper position. And this is the pickup. I just need to bend these parts, and I have some brackets here as well. And the idea is that it's going to come down sort of like this position, and I can keep it down by latching the spring or pushing the spring under this lip. So that's going to keep the pantograph in the lower position. And I've also created these small lips here. So that's going to keep these rods to be symmetrical, because what I realized and what I was also told about the plans that I received, that normally you have a control arm which goes from here to here, so that stops the pantograph from rocking side to side like this. But I have omitted that from my design, and also it was omitted from that design that I used as a basis. So that's going to keep the upper arms in the upper position to be symmetrical, and in the lower position, basically this catch is going to make sure that the pantograph doesn't tilt further down that way and potentially hit the top of the cab. And I think that's going to work. And I have a few more of these 3D printed, insulators. So I thought maybe I'm just going to buy something ceramic, but I just decided it's much quicker if I draw something in Fusion 360, and I started printing it, and it has the sort of the bevel which is going to match the slope. Sorry, not bevel, but this angle which matches the slope of the roof. So I think that's going to be fine. And that's the pantograph. So I still need these upper arms and need to fabricate them, weld them together, and then test the first bit. And by the way, before I got these 3D prints, the laser cut models, I also created a cardboard mock-up of this, and that seemed to have worked. I even have a small footage of this, maybe I'm just going to edit it here. And that seemed to have worked, so this is why I was confident that I can order all these laser cut parts, and they are going to work, hopefully. And hopefully you can recognize this black piece here, which has a few additional bits and pieces that got welded on recently. Then, as you can see, everything is black because, again, this was one thing that I wasn't planning on attaching any more metal parts to it, or it didn't require any more sanding. So I mixed a batch of black paint and I started painting this. And I also started painting a few more other things, for example, the couplers, the buffers, and some of the links and bits and pieces for the for the bogie. And it looks a little bit rough, and the reason for that because I don't use my compressor and my paint gun very often, usually like once a year or a couple of times a year. And by the time I start using it again, I always forget how it works. And I can never dial in the pressure and the amount of paint. And right after I'd done both of the coats, I realized that my paint was really, really thick. I should have used more thinner, and the paint gun just didn't have enough to spray the paint properly. So I think on the first coat I used some thinner, and on the second coat I didn't use any, because this is what I had in mind. So whenever I use the roller, I use thinner on the first coat and not on the second one. But I should have used a lot more thinner on both coats, because instead of spraying, the spray gun just spackled paint all over the thing. So if I bring the camera closer, everything has a texture, which, to be honest, I think it looks good. I definitely don't want the texture on the body, but I think on the chassis, on the main frame and sort of the buffer beams, everything is going to be visible. It's actually not that bad. So I think I'm going to leave it like that. I think there is already sufficient cover on the metal, so it's not going to rust. And I mean, worst case, I just need to disassemble the loco and paint it again next year. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. But before I did this, I added all these small bits and pieces which is going to hold the battery, so that these small channels, or rods, just going to stop the batteries from sliding around. And I have these coupling, and I'm just going to use some threaded insert and another piece of metal just to hold the battery down. And I created this cage which is going to hold all the electronics. So that's basically just a mounting surface just to mount the speed controller and some of the other relays. And again, there is going to be a control panel on the top here which can be accessed through the roof of the loco. So you can just lift up the center section of the roof, and you will be able to operate the switches and the charging port and that sort of stuff. So it has gotten two coats of paints, mostly the underside. So the upper side still needs, I think, at least one coat of black, and it also needs a coat of these train green, or I don't know how it's called. This green, all the locos have this green color from the inside. So I'm going to use that as well. But that's the chassis painted. And finally I have the material ordered and sent to the CNC cutter for the wheels. And I think that's probably the last part that needs to be manufactured. And after that it's assembly, paint, bodywork, electronics, and probably more 3D printing and a lot of detailing to complete. But that's all going to be in the next video. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I see you in the next episode.